Okay, so today I'm gonna show you really quick how to take apart a computer. This is a standard desktop that you will find in many places. Not a tower, but things are built pretty similarly these days. So, normally there's screws in the back. Take them out. Take the cover off. Put that on the side. As you can see, this one internal is a little different. Every computer is they're going to be different. But this is actually the computer that I built. Have no real purpose whatsoever. I bought the motherboard. It came with Atom processor, quad-core, and it's got 2 gig of memory. It's this really small. I think they call it ITX motherboards. It's designed to be inside of small cases, like really small home theater PCs, or really small footprint, or they call them the small form factor, or ITX form factors cases. So, but I bought this online and thinking I was going to build something out of it, but didn't really have any plans or could really figure out what I was going to use it for. So anyways, it's been in this computer for a while. It had Windows 7, I think. As you can see, it's a small desktop. So anyways, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the motherboard out, because I think I might want to later on put a different motherboard in here to make it a sort of a better desktop, to have better video options. The problem with this one is, as you can see, VGA, not a popular connections that we have these days. It's either HDMI or DVI or DisplayPort. So I mean, I have my screen here is you can see it's an old Dell. It has VGA on it, but it also has DVI and blah blah blah. But this is more or less for troubleshooting other people's PCs, and so I have to have all that connection. So anyways, start to taking things apart. For me, I really don't have any specific plan for this motherboard, so I'm just gonna take it out and take it apart. The connections and whatnot, and I'm most likely gonna keep most of the peripherals, hard drives and the CD-ROMs in there. Possibly, we'll see. To later on put a different size motherboard in here. So anyways, these, there's power connections, as you can see here. Then you got the 2 set of connections going to the CD-ROM and hard drive, and then you have these little cables. I don't know if you can see. Let's check. Okay, these guys. So these guys are they're jumper cables that connected to different parts. There's LEDs in the front for power, hard drive activity, LED, and the power button, the reset buttons. Those are normally set on this. So I don't think this one has a reset. I think it's just power button on this guy. Yep. So it's on the bottom. It just it doesn't have a reset. And if you want to shut it off, you just hold it down. So anyways, in order to take them all out, you gotta take out all of the wires. And here's a power for fan. This is a auxiliary power for the motherboard or CPU, however you want to call it. The main power, and then you have the HD audio cable and then the USB. So there's really not a lot on this little board. It's just tiny little board. So alright, so there's no really first or second steps. To just start taking them apart. Cable goes away. You gotta be careful sometimes, because I've had experience with cases and connectors actually pulling some of these pins out, so you gotta be kind of careful. Depends on the quality of the board, I guess. and there was actually an AMD board that I had that's got USB 3 on it, and the case I had has the front USB 3 ports, and so there's a little socket for it. It's got pins and it's got you know, a clip on it. And what happens is that when I'm trying to switch that out, trying to pull the connector off the pins. It actually took the whole thing off. so you know, it kind of broke the motherboard. So anyways, you know, taking these things out, you just kind of have to sort of be careful. And then there goes the SATA, and there's a second one. And then I'm gonna take the power and SATA cable off of the CD-ROM just so, because it makes it easier for me to work with the power cable, power connector here. There's a clip on the bottom. And that goes. This is actually a 24 pin, and then you have the power switch, power LED, hard drive LED. So now you have all the cables off, and here comes the power tools. Put it in reverse, take the screw out. For this one, because it's so tiny, you only require 4 screws to hold it in. So I'm just taking these out. When I bought the motherboard, a little background. When I bought the motherboard, it didn't come with a I/O shield. I/O shield is the plate that covers up the back of the motherboard on the case. It sort of sits between the case. It's wedged between the case and the motherboard itself. But you know, all the ports and all the, you know, ports, they come through so you can access them. So anyways, the motherboard's out, as you can see, tiny compared to, I actually don't have another one, but this is tiny. It's got a fan. This is the fan that I put on. It's I believe is a 90 mil fan. No, yeah, it's a 90 mil fan, Antac. It's got 3 speeds, very quiet. And originally this thing came with no fan, it's just heatsink. It got a little hot, and it still works, just I like to keep them kind of cool. So having a fan on it, I don't have to blow it really hard to cool the heatsink or the processor. The processor all, you know, underneath, and you can't really take it off. I mean, you can, but it's, you know, you don't want to. It's all built in, so which is kind of nice. I don't have to, you know, dick around and putting processors in and whatnot. 2 gig of memory, as you can see, actually works really well, because if you look at it, the fan has a little bit overlap on the memory, so that cools that off as well. But it's not touching, which is awesome. It's just height enough to have, you know, a little bit of room on top to kind of hang, and it's perfect. I love how that works. So here it is, the case without motherboard. Here's the power supply, CD-ROM, hard drive in here. This is more or less for demonstration purposes only, so I didn't really actually keep the hard drive in there. I didn't have it locked down. You can use the screw holes, or the case came with a clip that, you know, kind of holds it in place. So anyways, this is the case without motherboard, and that's how you take it out. Oh, actually, one more step. I/O shield. Like I said earlier, the I/O shield, well, this one didn't come with the motherboard. I just happen to have one that works perfectly with it. I think it came from a old motherboard that broke, so worked out well for me. Anyways, so that's how you take things apart. You know, in most of the cases, you know, when, let's say, you want to swap the motherboard, it's pretty much the same. You know, get rid of all the connections and, you know, start unscrewing the screws. As you can see on this motherboard, there's more screws. You can actually put a larger motherboard in here. You got one in the back here. I don't know if you can see this. Yeah, one in back here. There's actually another one underneath the CD-ROM, and there's 4 here that I use, and there are 2 more on the bottom. This size here is MTX. So that's a little bit larger size, more or less standard these days, unless you really go into gaming or professional workstations. Then you would have a full-size motherboard that could be, you know, a lot deeper and a lot, you know, longer, to fit, you know, different cards and, you know, have different features added on them. But, you know, like I said, mine, this one here,